I'm Todd Bookspan, and welcome to your neighborhood real estate show. The hyperlocal real estate show where real estate professionals talk about the neighborhood you live in or the neighborhood you want to live in. This episode is brought to you by homebuyeruniversity.net, your free comprehensive guide to buying or refinancing your home. Click over to homebuyeruniversity.net to get started online today. Hey everyone, I'm Todd Bookspan, and welcome to another episode of your neighborhood real estate show. I am super excited for our next guest, AmandaMalcom. And welcome, Amanda.
Thank you.
I was going to say something else, like I was already going down the path.
You got it.
But you are a luxury real estate specialist. So it's
correct.
I like that idea.
Yes.
And you are part of the agency, and you are focused on Paradise Valley.
Yes. That is my area of expertise.
Yes. Right. I know you sell all over, and that's the spot. So talk to me about real estate. I think it's always so interesting when I meet someone, and of course, when you get referred over, I'm like, all right, I'm gonna have to check out who Amanda is, and you've got this amazing Instagram, which I'm gonna dig into in a minute because you have all this stuff. But like, how did you get into real estate? Obviously, you've traveled all over the world. You're just got an interesting story there. But what led it to real estate?
Sure. So everybody's backstory always kind of goes really far. So I'll save us a lot of time by just kind of getting to the punch. So my dad was an excavator, and my mom was actually an interior designer. So I feel like every real estate agent kind of says, "Oh, it was in my blood." But right out of high school, I actually thought about going into real estate. My best friend went into commercial. And then I thought, gosh, I need to go to college and get a degree, right? So I did that. I ended up in hospitality, and I was in hospitality for like 14 years.
Wow.
And I specialized in weddings and corporate events, and it was so much fun. But it was not really that lucrative. And so I spent 14 years in the business, and I absolutely loved it. But then kind of family dynamics changed, and I got pregnant with my daughter. And when I was pregnant with my daughter, I thought, I need to change careers and do something that, is a little bit more lucrative, but gives me a little bit more time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, well, real estate doesn't give you
I think that's the biggest thing, is that all people are like, oh, I'm going to be able to set my own schedule.
Yeah,
my own thing.
no,
if you don't work that hard, guess what? Then it's not very lucrative.
This is true. And it is, it's a business that's flexible, but it's 24/7. So there's no more time from real estate, right? But, really, real estate was the perfect career for me, because it really was just hospitality on the ultimate level. So what I had spent 14 years doing was the skill set that I use every single day today.
So I love that, because I think what people don't realize, to me, when you're going through that experience, and I think everyone's like, it's cliche, it's the biggest purchase of your life, but you really want to have a great experience. And so I got to imagine that your background in hospitality means that your clients are extremely thrilled when they purchase or sell through you.
Yes, most definitely. I like to hope so.
Yeah. And so you got into business intentionally, but it sounds like it was a little bit more work than you thought about.
Yes, I got into it intentionally. This is actually really funny, because I just did an Instagram series about kind of working and what kind of drives us and motivates us depending on our generation, right? So you should watch it. It's really funny. But I was talking about just millennials and what kind of drives them and motivates us, which is career progression and something with a tremendous amount of responsibility. So working hard was always kind of something that I was always in my blood. I had my first job at 12. I babysat 2 little boys for like $3 an hour. And then after that, it just went from family to family. And then I had 5 babysitting jobs. And then I worked at a pet store when I was 15. And I always had all of these jobs, and just meeting people, and wherever that led, that's how real estate is. So I was never really, working hard or working more hours. I don't really calculate the amount of hours that I work. It's probably like 80 hours a week. It's nonstop. Yeah, it's nonstop. But it's not, it's every day. It's not all day, every day. So there are time frames like this where I have a little break, and then here I am, right? Recording a podcast with you. I'm so
glad you're here.
Thank you.
And so you said, hey, I thought about it in high school. It's funny to me, because out of high school, I don't find that most people used to stumble into real estate, but now, you have all these HGTV shows, and it's kind of cool to be a real estate agent and do that. So now I see that more people go down that direction. And so You ended up now, you co-chair the Paradise Valley Luxury Tour, or is it just called the Luxury Tour? What's it?
Luxury Home Tour Arizona.
There you go. And
yes.
so, I mean, that's kind of a big deal.
It is a big deal. It's actually the largest tour on the West Coast. So mainly what we do is we get together every other Friday. There's over 600 agents and affiliates that are members. Usually our tours are about 150 to 200 people.
Wow.
We've been around for 40 years. We're just celebrating our 40th anniversary.
Well,
Thank you. And yes, I am the tour chair this year, along with one other prominent agent in Paradise Valley. So you're basically voted in to co-chair to co-chair the meetings. We're together every other Friday. Usually we have some sort of speaker on some sort of luxury real estate topic. Doesn't necessarily have to be luxury related. And then we're together for a few hours. We tour some amazing houses. And yeah, it's a tremendous, tremendous group.
So it's interesting to me because I don't think most people would be surprised that real estate agents actually tour houses. Like, why would an agent want to tour a house? How does that benefit a consumer?
Sure. So especially in the market that we're in Paradise Valley, because this tour basically covers a very specific boundary. So it covers the boundary that I specialize in, right? So Paradise Valley kind of centered also around the Biltmore, Arcadia. So we have very specific tour boundaries. But the purpose for our client from a seller perspective is, one, to get exposure to other agents. Those agents may have a client that's looking for a house and they might not live here, or they might not, maybe sometimes with these luxury clients, they might not be actively seeking something at that moment in time, right? But they're working with an agent, or they have many times in the past. And so when we tour these homes, we may, as we're walking through, think to ourselves, oh, this is something that the Johnsons would love. I'm going to let them know this is exactly what they were looking for. They mentioned it to me, 2 years ago, and now I've been in the house, and I can call them and let them know that I've been in the property and it fits what they're looking for. So that's one reason. It also helps us as agents just know the inventory. So that way we can literally walk into a house when we're showing it to a buyer or when we're going on a listing appointment, and we know everything kind of around us. And so we can just kind of say this house should be, if you were to put an offer in on it, it would be 3.5 to 3.7 or whatever those ranges may be. It helps us be able to just stay on top of the inventory and what's happening with prices, which has been really important for the last couple of years.
Oh yeah. So I love it. So really it's giving you knowledge, and it's giving you relationships. And the fact is that a lot of those luxury buyers they're not buying it for their primary residence. So the Johnsons who talked about it 2 years ago, this could be their third home, and you found the perfect home for them.
Right. And the relationship piece is really important because there are so many agents. But when you're writing an offer for somebody, well, it's grown. And I imagine now that, we're starting to find a little bit more balance. Usually that means that those that have kind of gotten in the industry because it was booming will kind of phase out because they'll realize it's actually a lot harder than they anticipated. But the relationships are important because when you're under contract, if you know the agent that is part of this tour with you, you already know their personality, you can make the transaction go so much smoother if you know one another. That's Absolutely. Our job, is really to bring it together. But when you know the person, you know them personally, and especially with the market, with the way that it's been, some of the houses that I was able to secure for clients in the last couple of years was because I knew the agent personally. They would answer my phone call.
Right.
They know who I am.
I love that because people just don't understand it. That's, again, their job as a listing agent is to make sure that the experience is great for their seller too. And if they know you and that you're great and super professional, they're going to pick, all things equal or maybe even not equal, they're going to pick to work with you.
Exactly.
I love that. So you mentioned that the market is a little different. So when you say luxury home, you kind of gave us a little bit of the geographical area. Is there a dollar amount that's associated with that?
I guess we say maybe it depends. It really depends on the area in Arizona, and then in other states also. The term luxury, the baseline for that, whatever that number is, differs by state. For us in Arizona, we say $1 million and above. In Paradise Valley, that's really $1.5 million and above, because an acre parcel. That's or a scrape or something, you're already going to be in at 1.3 when you're not even looking at something with a view. So probably $1.5 million and up in PV is what we kind of say for luxury.
Right. So if you all missed that, she said people pay $1.3 million to buy a
for
house,
some dirt,
knock it over to build what they really want to have on that piece of house.
But that's changed. When I first got into real estate, you could get a great lot in Paradise Valley that, looked at Camelback for just over $1 million. Now that same lot, you'd be looking at, $1.8 million, maybe, probably more like 2 or a little bit over. So it really has significantly changed here in the last 5, but really more specifically the last 2 years.
Well, and Paradise Valley is interesting. So for people who don't know Paradise Valley, like they fly into Sky Harbor, where's Paradise Valley?
So Paradise Valley is only 15 minutes, right? So you can go straight up 44th Street to go into Paradise Valley. It's centered in between 3 mountain ranges. So you've got Camelback on the south side, and then you've got Mummy Mountain and the Phoenix Mountain Preserve. So that's actually what makes it so attractive, is you're right in between these 3 mountains. So no matter where you are in Paradise Valley, you have a view. And the town itself is only 15 square miles. So it's super, super tiny, actually, in comparison to other cities in Arizona.
And it's interesting, too, because there's not a gas station on every corner.
This is true. Yeah, I think we only have one.
One gas station.
I think it might be.
And it's on the outside. It's like on the
border. Yeah, I think it's like actually Scottsdale.
It's right on the border of Scottsdale.
Yeah.
And
they'll still pump the gas for you.
Right, and no big cell phone towers. They got those little fake cactus things.
Yep,
There's
you
a
can't
fake
see any
cactus that
towers,
you wouldn't know unless you're really looking for it.
This is true.
That's actually a cell phone tower, because people are like, oh, I live in my fancy house and I have no cell coverage. So they built those cool little things. So it is different.
It is, yes, it's different. And if you move in, the local police will come and knock on your door and introduce themselves. It's a very nice little neighborhood.
It is, and you mentioned the mountains and you mentioned the lots, like people buy an acre lot. I mean, and all the lots are big. There's not, you're not going to buy a lot and put 4 little cookie cutter houses on it.
No, most of them are going to be an acre,
right?
An acre or more.
Yeah, I mean, so I think it's really interesting. What we talked before about, we were talking about $100 million houses. There's no $100 million houses yet in Arizona. Like, what's an expensive house that you can tell us about in Paradise Valley?
I mean, now the average is probably 3.5. Mm-hmm. 2 years ago that would be maybe 2.5. So it really has changed. But we did have this spring, the most notable sale in Paradise Valley was at $21 million, and that was huge for Arizona. I mean, our numbers used to hover, kind of on a per square foot basis. Yeah. Anywhere from 600 to 1,000 a foot would be a spectacular house. Now, any new construction that you're going to look at in Paradise Valley with a view is going to be over 1,000 a foot. It's not uncommon now to see 1,300, 1,400, 1,500 a square foot. So it's really quite amazing for Paradise Valley, but for Arizona in general, to kind of see what is coming here to our valley.
Oh yeah. So what would be an amenity that would be in a $21 million house, or even a $3.5 million house that someone might not, who says, my house is $300,000. Like, I don't relate. Like, what's something cool that you've seen?
Well, I mean, this particular house was like 15,000 square feet. So it's very large. So looking at those numbers, you're probably looking at a lot of square footage. But cool things like, basketball courts, movie theaters, guest houses, neat areas that you can kind of drive into, and then put your car into an area that's like surrounded by glass. Really neat, entertaining type of spaces.
Right. Because if you had $20 million, you probably have a cool car. Yeah. You might as well be able to see it from the dining room table.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, why not?
That's what I
think.
If
you can, why not?
It's funny because I think some people are like, that's just how that's other people, but I'm just fascinated by it. I don't hold any grudge, right? If someone earned it, great, good for them.
Yeah, we get to see some really neat stuff sometimes.
Yeah. No, I just have to imagine, and to me it's just fascinating. My life story. No, I'm not going to give my life story, but my aunt and uncle moved out here in the 70s into Paradise Valley, and they just said it was just the most beautiful place they'd ever seen, and that they were expected to move back to Ohio to be a doctor there, and he'd been in the Air Force out in Arizona and just fell in love with Paradise Valley, and slowly but surely the rest of the family came out to AZ. Yeah, so that's kind of fun. So I appreciate you walking us down that kind of that piece. Anything else about Paradise Valley in particular? You mentioned Arcadia, you mentioned the Biltmore. So those are just a little bit over west for someone who's unfamiliar with it. Yes,
the Biltmore area is just slightly west, and then Arcadia is just south of Paradise Valley. And then, of course, Scottsdale, Phoenix also to the west, and then Scottsdale to the north, and then to the east. Yeah, so it's really just centered around all of those.
And so people can check out because for Wendy Walker, you're part of Wendy's Walker's team, www.findproperties.com, so they can go there and they can search Properties?
Yep, I think it's WendyWalkerFineProperties.com.
Wendy Walker.
Yeah.
All right, so let's make sure I don't say that WW again. We'll
That's
spell
all right.
the whole thing out. WendyWalkerFineProperties.com, which is awesome because Wendy's an icon in the market.
Yes, she sure is.
And so I think that's fun. So you mentioned that the market is different now. So talk about it from a buyer's perspective. So if I'm a buyer in the market and I'm coming to buy a house in Paradise Valley or Arcadia, I mean, what's the market like now, and how's that different from how it was before?
Sure. So obviously this is a question I'm getting asked every single day by everyone.
Surprise,
yes.
surprise.
Surprise, surprise. Because this is the topic in the news. And a lot of people are actually they're a little freaked out, which I cannot wrap my head around. Because if you look at what was happening even just 4 months ago in our market, I had some clients that were cash young athletes that competed for homes with 36 different other offers.
That's crazy.
I mean, imagine buying a house and actually being in a position to where you have cash. You're buying a multi-million-dollar home and you just competed with 36 other people for that house. I mean, it's mind-blowing. And now we've gotten back to a place where we just have more balance, and it's actually refreshing.
Love that word, refreshing.
It's refreshing,
right?
Because it was so frustrating for buyers. And you know what I didn't like to see as an agent? I just don't love waiving appraisal contingencies and waiving financing contingencies and waiving my inspections or shortening inspections. If someone's buying a home, you want them to feel good about it.
Yeah.
And when you're in a situation where you are competing against a lot of other people and then you're driving the price up and now you can't even you don't have time to even do your inspections really, and you're waiving all these contingencies, are you feeling very good about what you're buying? I mean, it doesn't give you the warm and fuzzies. And from a seller perspective, it's not really that great either. Do you want to go through 36 offers and then pick which one? And then here's also what would happen. Everyone's all freaked out, right? They can't secure a house, so everyone's writing, and then they secure it, and then they panic. They don't want this house anymore.
They finally go look at it. They might have even looked at it.
Exactly, and so now they pull out, and then now you're under contract again. This was happening all over Arizona, and agents would have houses under contract. They'd fall out. One agent had the same house fall out 5 times. A luxury home tour agent, because we would talk about this and go, gosh, our sellers are so frustrated. I mean, it's okay because you'll put it under again, but the whole process was it just didn't make anybody feel that great.
Yeah, it's stressful.
It's stressful.
It takes the joy out of going through the experience.
Exactly.
And I think as a seller, most of the time, unless you're an investor that's selling it purely for profit, but if it's your home whether it was a vacation home or your primary residence, you want to sell it to someone else who's going to love it like you loved it.
You do. Most people do. They want to sell it to somebody that they actually like.
Yeah.
That's their dream for their house. Yeah. And what was hard for sellers is, they're selling a house and then now they really don't have a lot of other places to go. So now they're kind of staying in their house until they're trying to find something, and now they're in this same thing as the buyer was in buying their house, where they're competing and they can't get what they really want. Now we have just more balance. So if I take you out, we could look at 5-6 houses today if you wanted to.
Because you've toured them all, you knew which 5 or 6 I'd actually like. You're gonna leave the ones out that didn't meet my criteria.
Well, what's horrible is until we came back to more balance, there was one weekend where I had 3 people out, and I showed all 3 of them because they were in the same price range. No, this was actually really hard for me from an integrity perspective.
Yeah.
I showed all 3 of them 2 of the same houses because there was nothing in that price range. And so I'd go into the house and I'd say to the agent, okay, I'm going to be back in 3 hours with a different set of clients. So just, try to just be aware that it's not the same people that I'm bringing back. Now, thankfully, it'd be very rare that 3 people would want to write on this same house, right? Even though I was in those situations with my clients competing against other people, it'd be very rare because they're all looking for something that is different, right? So that did not happen. But that was not uncommon. Now, that's just not the case.
Yeah.
We don't have to deal with that, which is great for buyers. You have optionality now. And time.
Yeah, I was going to say, you don't have to rush. I mean, that was the problem before. Is that, hey, this one went on the market 15 minutes ago. You might want to go there.
Right now.
Yeah.
In fact, it might be gone.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so then flip over to the other side then. So what about a seller? Now you just told the sellers, oh my gosh, your house isn't going to sell like that for, $300,000 more than asking price. So how are you approaching it with sellers?
Well, what we're seeing from a seller perspective, what's actually really difficult is that we had such a mass price appreciation, month over month for so long. Crazy. I mean, over in the last 2 years, just depending on where you're looking at, in some areas have increased more, but on average, it's like 36.7% appreciation in the Phoenix metropolitan area. That's quite significant. So now when we're pricing something, what is just hard for sellers is that the number that we may have put the house at 2-3 months ago is not the number that it is right now.
Today, yeah.
And it's challenging because you're looking at comparables and they're going, well, but my neighbor across the way, he just closed his house for X and mine's better.
Yep.
Right? Why now am I going to have to list it at this number? It doesn't make any sense. Well, the big difference really is inventory, right? Yeah. So February of this year, we had like 4,500 homes in the MLS, right?
For all of the valley.
Now there's 19,000. Now that sounds like a lot, and it's more. It's definitely more. But we should actually have about 23,000 right now. And the demand is still very high. We still have like 156 people moving into Arizona still a day. So there's still a lot of demand. It's just that there's more to choose from. So it's just going to take them a little bit more time, and pricing is going to be important, and we're not going to be, waiving contingencies. So it's just prepping them.
Yeah.
But nobody needs to be freaking out, because it's still, I don't know if we wouldn't really refer to it as a seller's market. For a while it was kind of a softening seller's market. Now we're just kind of saying it's just more imbalanced, but it gives them time too. And they're not getting bombarded with a million showings and having to do all this open house where you're having 50 people through your private home, in a 3-hour period of time. Now we're opening the doors to people that are actually, I don't want to say that those that were coming through homes weren't qualified, but we were at a time period in which we were getting bombarded by so many showing requests because there were so few homes that it was very common just to have the doors open to a house, and then we would just have people come through, right? That could be your multi-million-dollar home, and you just have cars lined up, 50 cars, and people just tromping through your house.
Driving by, saw the open house sign and want to come see what's there.
We don't need to do that anymore.
Yeah.
Now you're working with an agent, and the agent is going to vet the people that are coming through your home, and it's going to be an organized showing where someone is actually showing and selling the property. From a seller's perspective, believe me, they prefer that.
Oh, yeah. Well, and I think it's just better. Go back to the hospitality piece. It's just a better experience for everybody. And I think people would be surprised because the numbers for, $1 million plus are still really strong.
Very strong.
Right? I think people think, recession, those people don't need money anymore, their stock count's down, but that's not the case at all.
No, and actually our inventory in the luxury space is actually a lot less and still tighter than the valley as a whole. So we are still kind of struggling from an inventory perspective in luxury. But it's interesting to see, now that there is more balance and people have time, you can, from the hospitality perspective, you can see psychologically when people are in the home, there's not that like anxiety and like, do we have to write on this? Like, do I have to move in and out of this house quickly? There's just a little bit more peace.
Which is great. Good. I mean, I think that's a better market. I mean, as someone who obviously owns real estate myself and an investor, you like that appreciation. But if it,
of course, everybody does.
We're going to still appreciate a lot. Arizona always does.
I mean, that's just real estate from a long-term perspective. It will appreciate. Now, if you're looking at purchasing something and you want to flip this thing in 6 months, it's really hard for us, anybody. No one can predict who would have predicted this would have happened in the last 2 years. No one can predict anything. So if you're ever looking at flipping something, that's from an investor standpoint, you're talking about risk, right? If you're looking at buying your home and you're going to be in it for, let's say, 3 to 7 years, we don't need to be super concerned as far as what's going to be happening like that, because long-term real estate appreciates. That's just what happens. That's just what it. That's just.
In Arizona, more so is just certainly a gift, right? From that perspective. All right, so I'm going to switch gears for a second.
Yes,
so I mentioned your Instagram. So you just got back from hiking Mount Kilimanjaro.
I hiked Mount Kilimanjaro.
Like, you have all these different places. You've been all over the world.
Yes, I've been very blessed to travel quite a bit.
You were in the hospitality business, so it makes sense that would be part of it, but you must.
I didn't. You know what's so funny is when I was in hospitality, no, I was putting myself through school and I worked like 60 hours a week and all these jobs. So no, I really didn't. I studied abroad for a brief time period for just a couple months in Paris. But during those years, I didn't travel a lot because I was working and going to school. Honestly, I didn't have money or time to be able to do it. But it's a passion of mine that I think, I'm very, very lucky because when I was very young, probably like 10, I really wanted to take this Australia-New Zealand trip. And my grandparents helped me fund the trip. It was a trip called the People to People Student Ambassador Trip, and teachers recommended you for it. Actually, I think I was a little older. I think I was 13. So I was recommended, to it by teachers, and my grandparents helped me fund the trip. I also sold like 2,000 candy bars to go on that trip too. Yeah. And that, I feel like I was so lucky because I think that they recognized, this is odd that this little girl wants to go away from her parents and her family for 3 weeks and go to another country. There's something there. We're gonna send her and kind of see what happens. I don't think they realized that then they were just igniting this thing inside me that I like have to go places, exotic places too, not normal ones. I just don't go to Italy.
That's pretty exotic.
Yeah, Kilimanjaro.
So like where else? Because I said I'm not gonna totally like look at all of this because I was gonna learn from you live in person.
Yes. So the thing about Kilimanjaro that's funny. Usually when I go on a trip, I like to mix some sort of volunteerism in that, right? So Kilimanjaro, my best friend and I went, and we also volunteered at a hospital when we were there, and then at an orphanage as well, and then. So cool. And then the Kilimanjaro thing was actually secondary. We didn't go on the trip to hike the mountain. But we said, well, it's part of it, so we
might as well do it.
We might as well just
hike that little mountain.
Just do it. And a couple weeks before, we're like, I think that this might actually be a big deal, and so maybe we should
train a little.
Train a little bit. So, and I'm not saying. I mean, almost anybody could do it.
Right. It's a nice wide.
Yeah.
It's altitude.
It's not like crevasses,
right,
and
it's not Mount Everest.
It's not Mount Everest.
But it's serious high altitude. That's where
it's
most of the sickness.
The highest point is 19,341 feet. Yeah. So and I saw people coming down, and they were white as ghosts. I mean, it was at the end. The last day was concerning. It was hard. Yeah, for sure. It took 7 days, but it was incredible. And now I want to go on another trip. But besides that, there's a lot of places that I love. I always find, everybody always asks me, like, what's your favorite place you've traveled to? And I can't really ever choose because I always find a favorite piece of it that I love so much. Yeah. Some places that stand out, Austria, Australia, I really loved St. Bart. Haiti is a place I go to volunteer that I've been to several times. My best friend and I do that together. So that's something that that trip is an irreplaceable trip in my heart. We go with doctors and nurses, and we actually do surgery while we're there. So it's just a very, very impactful trip. And then, some of them are leisurely, but most of the time I like to do some extreme adventure or volunteerism. It's not normal travel.
And when you're there, how do you see things? So like my wife and I, we go to a country, we get out, we just walk, and like we were in Paris and we walked miles and miles and miles. What's your way? Is it on a bike? Is it walking? Is it a car? All of the above?
I definitely like to explore more than just, I'll always hit like the hot spots, right? A couple of the hot spots, but I always like to explore an area that most people generally wouldn't go, right? So sometimes that could be walking. Most of the time I'll try to organize some sort of transportation where they can take me to kind of remote places to explore like the real part of an area. Like I like the luxury parts, right? Because I want to see that, but I also want to experience the real parts. And sometimes that kind of scares people actually. When I go on a trip, I'm often warned. Morocco I loved, and I was warned by so many people. Oh, do they love it?
They do. Oh my dad riding a camel. Best highlight picture of the week.
Oh, I loved Morocco so much, and so many people warned me about it, just saying it was unsafe and that you're going to get kidnapped. And it was not like that at all. Everyone was so kind, and just the culture, the people, the landscape. It was an incredible trip and journey.
All right, so people can follow you on Instagram. They can learn about travel and learn about real
Yes,
estate.
they can. Sure.
All right, so then the other odd question I just had to ask, and I was just so nice not to interrupt you before, which I normally would have, was
Definitely
so you worked in a
interrupt me.
pet shop when you were 15. Like, what was your favorite pet you ever
Yeah. Okay. Well, see, I had a lot of pets when I was young too.
Okay.
My poor dear parents.
Oh.
Now, but you know what it taught me? That I don't want to have a responsibility, and also that I don't want to have a lot of pets.
There you go. Well, it's hard to travel that much if you have a lot of
A
pets.
lot of pets. My favorite pet that I had as a child. Let's see. I had a sugar glider. You know what a sugar glider is?
It sounds like a lizard.
It's like it's a flying squirrel.
Oh, all right.
Yeah.
You could buy that?
You could buy it at the pet store.
Okay.
Yep. And it looks kind of like like a mouse. Raccoon has this little tail, and they can jump. And then when they jump, they kind of like they glide. That's why they call it the sugar glider. It looks like a bush baby.
And you bought that at the pet store?
Yeah, I actually had 3 of them. Yeah, and I had hedgehogs. And I had all kinds of things.
I don't know where to even follow up that question.
I know it's
I
a
gave
little
my brother
exotic.
African millipedes for a present.
Millipede.
Yeah, and they didn't last very long. I don't know where they went. That's when I was off in college, but I gave them to them, and they weren't there for very long. I don't know.
How big was that?
There was 2 of them. They were like this long. So like if you were listening, they were maybe like 8 inches.
Like kind of like
long.
a giant centipede.
Yeah, it's like a giant centipede. They're like
Oh,
they
those
probably
things
stood like an inch off the ground.
Like the crustacean body of that
Yeah,
kind of like
just-
freaks me out. It's kind of
yeah.
like scorpion or roach.
Yeah, it was a combination
Which I
of
see
the two.
a lot of.
Combination of the two.
Yeah.
So all right. So before we wrap up, is there anything else real estate related that I should be asking you? Because guess what? You have to go to the airport after this on your next trip.
I do. Yes.
So
Actually,
my job is to get you out of here on time.
yes. Thank you. We will be on time. Let's see. Anything else real estate related? I mean, I think we've covered a lot of things, but I would say, what I most love about the business is that you really never know who you're going to meet and just where your day-to-day is going to take you. Some of my most favorite days in the business are I'll be walking through, a teardown where the roof is falling in and you can, see the dirt floor underneath the cracking foundation. And then I'll be, showing a $5 million house with, waterfalls and drop down TVs. And it's so hard to put that into perspective for people sometimes. Like, oh, what's your day to day like? They think it's so fancy. And sometimes I'm just stomping around the weirdest places, and it's like night and day where I start my day and where I'll end up. And I don't know, it makes me really grateful for my job that it's so different on a day-to-day basis as far as who I get to meet and where I get to go.
All right, so everyone who's enjoyed this journey as much as I have, if they want to reach you, where do they find you? You already mentioned Instagram, but where else, or what's the best way?
Sure. Well, best way is probably Instagram. You can direct message me. So it's AmandaMalcom Global Luxury. But you can also email and phone number.
Global Luxury.
Yeah, that's probably the easiest.
Right.
Is Amanda
Find you on
Malcolm Global
Instagram. There you
Luxury.
go. I like that.
Yeah, that's easiest.
All right, we'll put all the other contact info in the
That's
show notes for
perfect.
everyone listening. They'll be able to do that. And
Don't give everybody too much. They can't handle it,
Exactly. Exactly. All right. Well, everyone, that was a fun episode for me. I hope it was as fun for you. Thanks, Amanda. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
This episode is brought to you by homebuyeruniversity.net, your free comprehensive guide to buying or refinancing your home. Click over to homebuyeruniversity.net to get started online today.